Today, we're going gold mining. So this is an old mining property, and I've just acquired a lease on it. And so right now we're up here sampling some old piles, kind of cleaning up what the old miners left behind, and doing some bulk sampling to see where the gold is and what kind of grade we're looking at, grind size. But it's our first summer, and right now our goal is kind of to get our feet under us. We're taking out a bulk sample. Our plan is to get about 30 tons or so down this season, and then over the fall and winter run it through our turnkey system and recover the gold, see what kind of recoveries we're getting, and then make a mining plan for the underground veins in the next couple of years. So from our sampling and our testing, these piles are running anywhere between 1/4 ounce and 1/2 ounce of gold per ton. And this truck, we're hauling about 3 tons a load. I'd like to get about 5 tons a trip. This is the quartz vein that the old timers were mining. The foot wall is somewhere down in here. It's a little bit hard to tell because the vein's all oxidized. But somewhere about here is the foot wall, and then you have quartz all the way up through to about here. So the vein that you're looking at is probably about 3 feet wide. The main minerals in this vein are pyrite, pyrrhotite, and a little bit of chalcopyrite. The gold is typically free milling, so when you crush it up, you can concentrate it out on a shaker table or a sluice. But this is what the miners were after, and we're standing in the old stope, and it's really hard to get a shot of it in the dark here. But it's essentially a big room that the old miners blasted and mucked out all the vein material. They took it down to the mill, and this is where they stopped. This was their working face, and they stopped here because, you know, they ran out of money or the mill burned down or whatever. There was some problem they had, and this was as far as they got. But you can see a little bit of the mineralization here. Again, the light's pretty bad in here, but there's a little bit of that pyrite stuff. The gold is typically associated with the other minerals. When you have barren white quartz like this, it usually isn't very high grade. But yeah, this would be a candidate for us, or a target to come back in and mine. The grade of this vein averages somewhere between 1/2 and 1 ounce a ton. And the width, it pinches and swells, but typically it averages about 2 to 3 feet. And it's more or less flat lying, kind of dipping to the south about 20, 25 degrees. All right, so we're down in the lowlands now, and you can see the bags behind me that we brought out. We've brought down 35 bags of ore. You can see them behind me here. The bags average right around a ton or maybe a little bit more per bag. So we're hoping we got about 35 or 40 tons down here to play with this fall. And so here's a little up close look at some of the stuff we're working with. And this is the host rock, or the wall rock. And this is like a metamorphosed shale or a slate. And then here's the quartz, the ore that we're going to be looking for. And this is where the gold's going to be. But you can see in this pile, you know, like here's a piece of quartz. Here's a piece of wall rock. So it's kind of mixed up. There's probably about 1/2 quartz, 1/2 wall rock. Typically what happens is when you blast, the quartz gets blasted pretty small, and then the wall rock pieces and stuff that you didn't drill end up staying large. So one of the things I'm considering is running this through a grizzly, and then taking the fines and running them through the mill first, and then taking the oversize, and you can come through and sort out the wall rock, so you're not having a bunch of time and energy wasted just milling rock that doesn't have any gold in it. But looking up close here, let's see if I can get it to focus. Here's that pyrrhotite I talked about, that iron sulfide. It's a end member of the pyrite family, essentially. It's just iron and sulfur. That's the main mineral there. But anytime you have that pyrrhotite, that mineralization you see there in the quartz, it typically is running pretty good with gold. And then, of course, you get some big chunks of quartz float that we found, and we dug those up. So I've got a few pretty good pieces. But here, just walking through and looking at some of these sacks, you can see we've got quite a bit of ore. There's a characteristic. A lot of it's not very big. So to process our ore, we're going to use the 1 ton per hour turnkey system behind me. And we're going to crush the rocks down to gravel size. Then we're going to pulverize them in our hammer mill to liberate the gold from the rock. Then the material is going to flow down onto our 4 foot by 8 foot shaker table. The gold and the heavy metals are going to come across into our concentrate buckets. And then afterwards, we'll take our concentrates, pan them out, smelt them, and recover our gold.
So there's a good part of the gold out of the 1.5 or 2 tons that we ran. This gets brushed down out of the grooves of the table when we're all finished off, because it takes a while to build up in the grooves for it to be enough volume to sweep the gold out. So you always have to brush out what's left over after you're done running the ore. So we'll finish this off and tally it up. So we spread some of this gold out a little bit to see how it spreads out on the table when there's just gold. So everything on the left of this pile right here is on the downhill side of the ramp and is going back over under the water bar. And then there's some that we left on the downhill side of the ramp that's going to end up going down, getting caught in this long groove and coming out here and over to the number 1 high-grade hole.
Alright guys, we got our concentrates here off the shaker table. There's our little bit of number 1 in there. And then here's our high grade number 2, so we got quite a bit more volume here. But most of our gold's in the number 1 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pan this out, recover as much free gold as I can, and then I'm going to take the rest of the stuff, the panning tailings, and I'm going to smelt them down and see how much gold I lost in my panning. But this is a quick, easy, fast way to figure out how much gold you got if you're out testing tailings piles or dump piles or old ore dumps. And you don't necessarily want to go through all the trouble of smelting down all the concentrates and the number 1 and the number 2. You just want to get a good idea of how much gold is in there, and then you can get it weighed once you get it melted all down together into one big button. So that's the process I'll do now. We'll get this stuff panned out, and then I'll show you how I'm going to melt it all down into a button and refine it to get all the lead and copper and other junk out of there. All right, so I got our gold panned out here. And the lighting's not great, but there's our gold. And now I'm going to take just a little snuffer bottle and get it all sucked up, and then we'll strain it through a cloth and wring the water out, and then we'll melt it all down into a little button. Okay, now I've got our snuffer bottle here. I don't know if you can see. I can chase this gold around, but there's gold in the bottom there. It's hard to see. But anyway, we got all our gold sucked up in our snuffer bottle there. And now I'm going to take the gold and put it in this rag. It's just a blue shop rag. I got a cup underneath. I'm going to take out the straw here. And if you guys have watched my other videos, you've probably seen me do this before. I actually discovered this by accident. You can see the gold coming out of there. When I wanted to try and clean up my gold here, I was going to try and cupel it, which is mixing it with lead after you've smelted it and everything. And I had a bunch of gold and it was almost clean, and I didn't want to smelt it because that just takes a long time, and not a long time, but it's a little bit of a hassle and a little bit of an extra step and stuff. And so I tried just direct Q-pelling it. I cleaned it up as best I could, got it in this rag, and Q-pelled it, and ended up with a really nice little gold button. And so I've since taken up to doing this whenever I'm kind of in a hurry or want to get a quick result and I don't have time to smelt. And I also like to pass this stuff on to you guys. So I've got most of my gold out of there. I'm going to save that. Obviously, I won't just dump it out. There's still just a little bit of gold in there. But here's our, let's see if I can get her focused here. Here's our gold in our rag. And now I'm going to take our rag, pull it up, and I'm just going to wring the water out of this rag. And all the gold is going to stay down here in the bottom in our little, oh, it ripped. All right, plan B. I'm not going to be able to get as much water out as I hoped. Okay, don't rip it. In the future, don't rip it. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to cut it off here. I'm going to put this in our Q-pel. It's in the furnace. It's hot. And it'll evaporate all the water off. It'll burn the rag, and it'll leave our gold all dried out in the Q-pel. So there you go. Mount Baker Mining Metals bloopers right here. All right, guys, here's our little gold button. Let's see if I can get it to focus here. And there you go. It might be hard to tell in the video, but it's pretty shiny yellow, so there's not a whole lot of silver in there. And it's got those kind of cooling lines on the surface. So there you go. Not bad for a couple hours of running this morning. Let me get the scale out. We'll see how much it weighs. All right, here's our gold. The stuff I panned out ends up weighing about 19.25 grams. And those bags are somewhere probably around 1.5 tons, maybe 2 tons. So we're somewhere in the range of 10 to 15 grams a ton with that stuff. And that's stuff I could pan out. Now let's go and smelt the stuff I panned out, and then we'll also smelt some number 2 and see how much precious metal we have in there. All right, here's our number 1 panning concentrates. I left them in the frying pan last night, let them dry out. And now we're going to roast them. I'll heat them up to about, 800 or 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 minutes and get them roasted, drive off all that sulfur, and then we'll smelt them. All right, so we got our lead button here, knocked it off the bottom of our slag. I'm going to put it in one of these cupels, and I'm going to put it in our little electric furnace and drive off the lead and see what kind of precious metal button we got left. All right, guys, so we've done all our experiments, all our smelting and stuff, and wanted to let you guys know how much gold I actually recovered. So here's the stuff that I panned out. That's that 19 1/4 or so grams. This little button is the stuff that came out of the #1 panning tailings, the stuff that I panned out. That's the gold that I lost. And I smelted it down and got a little button out of there. So altogether in the #1, we ended up with about 21 1/3 grams. And then I took some of the #2 high grade that we had and smelted 300 grams of the #2 and ended up with this little tiny bead here, which weighs right around 1/10 of a gram. And I've dried out and weighed the rest of the #2 concentrates, and I have about 3 kilograms of that stuff. So multiplying this number by 10, which I have about 10 times as much left, there's about a gram left or so in the #2 high grade. That being said, it's not probably practical to smelt down 3 kilograms worth of stuff to get 1 gram of gold. It's just, it takes too much energy and flux and time and all that stuff. So but I wanted to share with you the end result from running our 2 sacks of stuff through our 1 ton per hour turnkey system. We ended up with right around that 10 to 15 grams a ton, even when it was all cleaned up and smelted down. So I think that was a pretty successful run. So thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or comments, you can find our contact information in the description below. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.